Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Hunter, and I work for MP Gord Johns. Gord has been racing up and down the riding of Courtenay-Alberni this past week, delivering more disability tax credit workshops than any other MP in the country. The response that we've seen in communities has been overwhelming. On two occasions, we had lineups going out the door and into the street, so we had to host second emergency sessions just to fit everybody in. As a result, we wanted to cap off the week of presentations with this video, making sure that everybody at home knows about the tax credit, how to apply, whether they're eligible, and what other benefits they might be entitled to receive. The first thing that I want to say about the disability tax credit is that this whole presentation shouldn't even be necessary. If you're on provincial disability, you should be automatically qualified to get the federal tax credit. Unfortunately, the federal government requires that instead you fill out a 16-page form, 14 pages of which need to be completed by a doctor or another medical practitioner. That's a huge burden on an already strained medical system. According to the College of Family Physicians, this form alone takes up more than 1 million patient hours per year and over 250,000 doctor hours. Doctors in Canada want to be helping patients. They don't want to be filling out long forms. And so Gord introduced Bill C-211, which calls for an end to the duplication process and a change federally to make provincial disability automatically qualifying for the federal tax credit. Until that bill is passed, though, we want to make sure that everyone at home knows as much as they can about this tax credit so that they can make the most of it. The other thing that I want to say before we start is that this workshop used to be given by the CRA until the program was ended by the Harper-era Conservatives. As a result, a worker from the CRA actually sent the original version of this presentation to an NDP MP, and ever since, NDP MPs and their staff have been giving what we like to call this bootleg presentation. So what is the DTC? Well, it's a non-refundable tax credit. What that means is it's a reduction in taxes payable or a reimbursement on taxes you've already paid. If you don't earn enough to use the entire tax credit, unfortunately, you are not able to receive the rest paid out. That's why it's called non-refundable. On the bright side, you can claim this tax credit back up to 10 years if your date of disability is prior to a decade ago. So we encourage you to apply as soon as possible to maximize the amount of years that you're eligible for. So what makes you eligible for the DTC? Well, it's not based on your diagnosis. Instead, it's based on how your disability impacts your everyday life in one of a number of categories. The categories recognized by the CRA for everyday activities are vision, speaking, hearing, walking, elimination, that's bowel and bladder function, feeding, dressing, mental functions, which are necessary for everyday life, that's things like memory and logical reasoning, the cumulative effect of significant limitations, and life-sustaining therapy. And those last two I'm going to be getting a little bit more into in a moment. The key term to know for the CRA is marked restriction. What a marked restriction is an impairment which makes it so that it takes you at least 3 times as long to complete one of those everyday activities. So if it takes you 3 times as long as someone else of your age group to get dressed in the morning, or if you're unable to do so independently, then that's a marked restriction. The restriction needs to be present at least 90% of the time. Now, that doesn't mean that symptoms of your disability have to be felt at least 90% of the time, but it needs to be impairing your ability to do those activities at least 90% of the time. If you have vertigo and you don't feel symptoms all the time, but it means that it takes longer to walk to the grocery store because you have concerns about becoming dizzy and falling while on the route, that impairment is still impacting you even when the symptoms aren't felt. The other key term is prolonged impairment. What that means is that the disability has to have been experienced for at least 12 months or be expected to be experienced for at least the next 12 months. If you're in an accident and it takes you 8 months to recover, unfortunately, you're not eligible for the DTC because that's still considered a short-term disability. It doesn't have to be permanent, but it can't be short-term. Now, there are two exceptions to the marked restriction rule. The first is the cumulative effect of significant limitations. What that means is that you have an impairment which impacts at least two of those daily activities, but doesn't impact either of them significantly enough to make up a market restriction. So if it takes you just a little longer to dress in the morning and a little longer to walk to work, and together those are equivalent to it taking you at least three times longer to do one of those activities, then that together is the cumulative effect. So basically, if you have a disability or an impairment which impacts multiple activities in a day, even slightly, you can qualify under this measure. The other one I want to discuss is life-sustaining therapy. You don't actually have to have a disability to receive the DTC. If you're receiving medical treatment that takes at least 14 hours a week and has to be implemented at least twice a week, you can be eligible for the DTC through the life-sustaining therapy clause. The way we see this most frequently is for people who experience diabetes and have to receive dialysis multiple times per week. So now, if you know that you're eligible, how do you apply? Well, to apply, you need to submit a filled out Form T2201. That's the 16-page application that I mentioned at the start. It's divided into two parts. The first part is just 2 pages, and that's for you to fill out yourself. That has basic biographical details and a box for you to describe the disability and any situation where any loved ones assist you with everyday needs. The other 14 pages has to be filled out by your doctor or your medical practitioner. And that's really an important point. It doesn't just have to be your doctor. It can be another medical practitioner in the field related to your disability. So in addition to doctor and nurse practitioner, it can be an optometrist for vision issues, an audiologist for hearing issues, an occupational therapist, physiotherapist, psychologist, speech language pathologist, or newly this year, a podiatrist. The caveat is that the medical practitioner has to be relevant to the field of your impairment. You can't go to your optometrist with balance issues, and likewise, you can't go to your physiotherapist with vision trouble. Once the form has been filled out, you can submit the completed version to the CRA. You can submit it online through the digital form, or you can mail it to the nearest tax center. If you have concerns about the cost of postage, you can bring the form to our office or to your local MP if you're not in Gord's riding, and we can mail it on your behalf postage free. Before you submit the application, please make sure that the writing from your doctor or medical practitioner is legible. That sounds like a joke, but really the number one reason we see these forms rejected is because the doctor's name, address, or phone number were written out in medical school chicken scratch that made it impossible for the CRA to make out what it said. So if it's possible, please do make sure that your doctor has written the form out clearly before you submit. Once the application is submitted, you'll expect to wait several months to hear back. The CRA says it takes about 2 months. Right now in our office, we're seeing that it takes about 4 to 6. If the application is approved, you'll receive a notice of that, and you'll also receive a notice which says which years back you're eligible for. So it could be up to 10 years back. You don't need to fill out this form again every year unless the CRA requests that you do so. Usually, when they request that you fill it out again, it's because they believe that your disability may improve or that new treatments have emerged that may change the course of your disability. You do need to tell the CRA if your disability has improved to the state that you no longer qualify for the DTC. If the application is rejected, the first thing that we recommend that you do is reach out to your MP. If you're in Gord's riding, reach out to our office. We can help you gather information about why your application was rejected, um, and make sure that you are as prepared as possible to file for reassessment. The next step is to send a letter to the CRA asking for it to be reassessed. Usually, what is required for the reassessment is additional information the CRA didn't get. Often that's something that comes from your doctor. If that doesn't work, the final step within 90 days of the decision is to file a formal appeal. Once you do that, our office can no longer assist you. So please reach out to us before you reach that point, or we can't help, unfortunately. So now that you've received the DTC, how do you claim it on your tax return? Well, uh, you can claim it each year on the return itself, but if you don't need the full amount, you can actually transfer the remainder to a loved one as long as that person lives under your roof and assists you with a essential for living, which is basically food, shelter, or clothing. The family member can live apart from you, but that can be more difficult to prove and requires more paperwork for the CRA. What we always tell people who are in this situation is be really generous in your interpretation of the support that you are getting from a loved one. Them helping you with a basic necessity doesn't mean that they need to be paying your mortgage or buying all of your food. There are smaller ways that they may be financially supporting you or supporting you with one of these basic essentials that you should include. Your loved one can also claim back the full 10 years. So this can be a huge boon for them and can be a gift to your loved ones. So for the 2025 tax year, you can claim up to $10,138. And if you're the caregiver for someone under 18 who's received the DTC, you can claim an additional $5,914. Now, keep in mind, this isn't the total reduction that you'll receive in your taxes. Instead, you'll receive about 15% of this in terms of your actual reduction. But that's still over $1,000 currently, so it can be quite impactful, especially when you go back those 10 years. So to claim for yourself, you include an online 31,600 on your tax return. For a dependent, it's 31,800, and for a spouse or a common law partner, it's 32,600. If you were charged a fee by your doctor or medical practitioner to fill out the form, you can claim that separately on your tax credit as a medic or on your tax return as a medical expense. And I'll be getting more into that later. So here's the amounts that you can claim for the past 10 years. The adjustment should automatically be made once you fill out the DTC, as long as you check a little box on the first application that says revise my previous tax years. If you didn't fill out that box, or if you did, but for some reason the CRA didn't automatically revise it, you can reach out to them in a letter asking them to make that change. And if the problem persists, reach out to our office and we can assist with some advocacy here. Now, the DTC is a boon for people on its own, but it can also open the door to a number of other benefits and programs federally. The disability tax credit is the only way that the federal government knows that you have a disability. CPP disability doesn't communicate with any other federal government department for this, so you want to have the DTC to be recognized for other programs federally. There are a range of permanent programs where you may be eligible because of the DTC, and I'll be getting into those. But you may also get priority for temporary benefits. For example, during COVID, one of the emergency benefits gave priority to people in the DTC. Also, last year, when the federal dental care plan was rolled out, first priority access was given to seniors and people on the disability tax credit. So we don't know what the next few years will hold, but you can have easier access to new programs as they emerge by qualifying for the DTC. I also want to point out the Canada Workers Benefit before we move on. You don't need to have the disability tax credit to be eligible for the workers' benefit. If you're earning less than 37,000 as an adult without children who lives alone, or less than 49,000 as a family, and you're working, then you can be eligible for the workers' benefit. That's an automatic eligibility. You just fill it out in your tax return. Now, if you have the DTC, you can get an additional supplement uh, with the workers' benefit. So it's worth keeping an eye out for that. I also want to note before we move on that the DTC does not disqualify you from any provincial disability programs, and likewise, provincial disability programs do not disqualify you from the DTC. Please don't prevent yourself from receiving provincial benefits because you want to receive the DTC. You should be able to receive both. So, one of the benefits that can come from having the DTC is the Registered Disability Savings Plan. This is a plan intended to help parents and other caregivers and loved ones of people with disabilities to save for the long-term financial security of that person. So, if you're the parent of a child who experiences a disability and you want to make sure that they're in a good position for after you pass away or are unable to support them, the RDSP can be a way to help with that. Contributions to an RDSP from private sources are not tax deductible, and they can be made until the end of the year when the beneficiary, that's the person with the disability, turns 59. Contributions that are withdrawn are not included as income when paid out of the RDSP. There are also two federal programs that help supplement the funds in the RDSP. Those are the Canada Disability Savings Grants and Canada Disability Savings Bonds. I'll be talking about those in turn. The savings grants are an amount that the government pays into RDSPs, matching contributions from private sources. The government will pay a matching grant at rates of 300%, 200%, or 100%, depending on the beneficiary's adjusted family net income and the amount that's contributed. The RDSP can get up to 3,500 in matching grants from the federal government through the Savings Grant Program in 1 year and up to 70,000 over the lifetime of the beneficiary. These grants can be received until the end of the year when the beneficiary turns 49. So that's a decade earlier than the end of private contributions. There's also the savings bonds. These do not require contributions from private sources. Instead, this is an amount paid by the government directly into the RDSP regardless of contributions from the beneficiary or from their loved ones. The government pays a bond of up to $1,000 a year to low-income Canadians with disabilities through the RDSP. This amount decreases depending on increases in family net income, and the lifetime limit is 20 years for $20,000 total. And again, this program ends at the end of the year when the beneficiary turns 49. The limit to private contributions over the lifetime is 200,000. But there's no yearly limit that can be given all at once or over the course of 30 plus years. As soon as someone receives the DTC, they're eligible to open an RDSP. To open one, you want to go to a local financial institution, a financial advisor, and inquire about this. What we encourage is that you shop around to find someone who has familiarity with this program before you open a plan with them. We've heard from a lot of financial experts that even with years of experience in the field, they don't know much about this plan. And so you want to make sure you're finding someone who does so that you can make the most out of the plan and the benefits that it accrues. If the beneficiary is for some reason not able to maintain their own finances or this account, then a trusted institution or authorized representative can do so on their behalf. The RDSP is a long-term savings plan. What that means is that you're discouraged from withdrawing from it early. If you withdraw within 10 years of a government contribution being made into the plan, a portion of the government contribution will be clawed back. So if you receive government contributions right up until the end of the year when you turn 49, then you won't be eligible to withdraw without clawbacks until the end of 59. Regular withdrawals have to begin by the end of the year when you turn 60. If the beneficiary passes away before they're able to withdraw money from the RDSP, then the money in the account goes to their next of kin after any clawbacks resulting from that death happening within 10 years of government contribution. The newest benefit that comes with the DTC, or comes from the DTC, I should say, is the Canada Disability Benefit. This is a direct financial support for people with disabilities who are 18 to 64. Now, this just launched last year, and you can receive a maximum benefit of a little over $200 a month through this program. That decreases depending on family income. You can also claim this back to when the program started, so back to the end of June of 2025. And you can claim back up to 2 years once the program has matured to the point that it has existed for 2 years. So right now you can only claim back a year, but in a year you'll be able to claim back up to 2 years. And after that, you'll start losing eligibility windows the longer you wait. To qualify, again, you have to be between 18 and 64. You need to be on the DTC, and you need to have filed federal income taxes. You also must be a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or someone otherwise authorized to be living in Canada. This is, again, an income tested benefit. The idea with this benefit is that it supplements the situations where the DTC itself is less helpful. If you aren't earning enough to receive the benefits of the DTC, and you also don't live with loved ones that you can transfer the credit to, then the CDB will be there for you to receive the full amount of. Now, you don't automatically receive the Canada Disability Benefit just because you're on the DTC. You need to apply for this after DTC approval, but separately. This goes to Service Canada. You may have received a letter from Service Canada saying that you may be eligible for this and giving you a code to apply. But if you didn't, you can still apply to Service Canada directly. And if you need help accessing this form, again, please reach out to our office or your local MP office. We also note that you may want to provide your direct deposit information, as right now that's the preferred way for the government to transfer benefits to Canadians. So, to submit your application, you can do so online, by phone, in person at a Service Canada office, or by mail. Now, again, if you don't want to mail it directly to them, bring it to our office or to your local MP, and we can mail it on your behalf. The last thing that I want to discuss is medical expenses and claiming them on your tax return. These don't require the DTC, but a lot of people who are on the disability tax credit may not be aware of the other tax claims that they may be eligible for. So, eligible medical expenses to claim include payments made to doctors and other medical practitioners, prescription medications, and payment for rehabilitative and therapeutic devices, things like wheelchairs, glasses, and walkers. These medical expenses are, again, a non-refundable tax credit, so you can't be paid out for them, but they can reduce your taxes payable or reimburse you for taxes paid. You claim them through line 33099 for you or your spouse, and 33199 for a dependent. So, in addition to the common medical expenses you may be aware of and that I discussed briefly before, there are other things that you can claim through this program. For example, attendant care and facility care is eligible. The cost of service animals. An interesting one a lot of people are unaware of is the price difference between gluten-free and non-gluten-free food if you have a gluten intolerance. If you're paying more for gluten-free groceries, as long as you keep the receipts, you can actually claim that price difference. There are also some big ticket items you may be eligible for. For example, you can claim up to $20,000 for construction and renovation to make your home more accessible or for medical reasons. So, if you need to modify your bathroom in order to make your bathtub or shower more accessible, you can claim those renovations up to $20,000. You can also claim modifications to your vehicle up to $5,000. And if you have to move for accessibility or for medical reasons, then you can claim the cost of moving itself for up to $2,000. You can also claim travel expenses. If you're traveling more than 40 kilometers to attend a medical service or otherwise for reason of your disability, you can claim the cost of fuel and wear and tear on your vehicle. If you're traveling more than 80 kilometers, so if you're traveling from Qualicum Beach to the Royal Jubilee Hospital in Victoria, then you can also claim the cost of accommodation and the cost of parking. The caveat here is that it does have to be 80 kilometers in a straight line. You can't travel from Nanaimo to Hawaii to Nanaimo Regional General Hospital and then claim accommodation, unfortunately. There are also some medical expenses that you can't claim. You can't claim fitness club fees, birth control devices which aren't prescription, blood pressure monitors, or any form of cosmetic surgery. Additionally, to claim medical expenses on your tax return, you need to keep receipts. Keep receipts of everything that might qualify. And for big ticket items as well, keep proof of payment. That means bank statements or credit card statements for larger purchases. Now, with this whole process, our office may be of assistance. We can help check the status of an application after it's been submitted and get you a timeline on when you might hear a response from the federal government. If you run into an issue after you submit, we can help by advocating on your behalf and getting more information about why you were rejected. But we can only do that before an appeal is made. So again, please come to us first. We can't help you with filling out the form directly. Unfortunately, we're a small team and there are 34 communities in the riding of Courtenay-Alberni. And so we just don't have the resources to assist with filling out the paperwork, but we can print it off for you, mail it to you, and we can also help you find local organizations that can help with filling out those forms. There are also some great provincial resources. The Disability Alliance of BC has a Navigating the DTC program. Unfortunately, right now, because of the extraordinary demand for the DTC, it has an 18-month waitlist. There's also Inclusion Canada. Heather Lambert is the Western Canadian Navigator for the DTC, so her job is to work with people in BC and Western Canada to help them work through the DTC forms, get access to resources, and understand the process. So we do encourage you to reach out to her if you have questions or need any help. Also, if you need to contact us for any reason, we encourage you to reach out by our website, by email at gord.johns@parle.gc.ca, or by phone 250-947-2140. You can also drop by our office. We're open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 10 to 12 and from 1 to 4. So that's the presentation. Again, if you have any questions at all, please reach out to our office. We'd be happy to help you. And we hope that you're able to access this tax credit and receive all the benefits from Ottawa that you're eligible for. Thank you.